My golden child sister drained my bank account for her wedding. My gift made her new husband furious. I, 29F, have always had a complicated relationship with my sister. Growing up, she was the golden child, beautiful, charismatic, and somehow always getting her way. I was the reliable one, the responsible one, the one who would drop everything to help when needed. Our dynamic never really changed, even as adults. When she got engaged last year, I was genuinely happy for her. Despite our differences, I love my sister and wanted her to have the perfect day. So when she called me, voice bubbling with excitement, to ask me to be her maid of honor, I accepted without hesitation. "I'm so glad you said yes," she squealed over the phone. "This wedding is going to be amazing, and I need someone I can really count on." Those words should have been my first warning. It started small. A lunch meeting to discuss wedding plans where I somehow ended up paying the bill. A quick favor, to pick up some sample invitations that turned into me driving 2 hours to a specialty printer because she just couldn't find the time. I didn't mind at first. That's what sisters do, right? Then came the bridal shower. "Nothing fancy," she assured me. "Just something small for close friends and family." When I asked about the budget, she laughed. "Oh, don't worry about that. You'll figure it out." I did figure it out, to the tune of $2,500 for a small gathering of 40 people at an upscale restaurant. My credit card winced, but I told myself it was a one-time expense. The bachelorette party was next. Again, I was informed that as maid of honor, I would be covering all costs. When I gently suggested that traditionally the costs are split among the bridesmaids, she looked at me as if I'd suggested we hold the wedding in a dumpster. "The other girls are already spending so much on dresses and travel," she explained with a hint of irritation. "I don't want to burden them." Apparently, burdening me was completely fine. The bachelorette weekend in Vegas cost me another $3,800, including accommodations for 6 girls, a VIP club night, and a day at a luxury spa. My savings account was starting to look concerningly empty, but every time I tried to bring up money, my sister would tear up. "I thought you'd be happy to do this for me," she'd say. "It's my special time." The final straw came 3 weeks before the wedding. I was in my apartment, surrounded by handmade wedding favors I'd spent weeks creating, when my phone rang. "Hey, so there's a small problem with the bridesmaid dresses," my sister began casually. The seamstress had apparently made a mistake with the alterations for 2 of the bridesmaids. My sister had already taken care of it by ordering new dresses, and had given the seamstress my contact information for payment. "It's only $900, she said dismissively. "And it's not like I can wear a wedding dress with bridesmaids in ill-fitting dresses. That would look ridiculous." I sat among the half-finished wedding favors doing mental calculations. Between the shower, bachelorette party, my own bridesmaid dress, shoes, hair, makeup, and countless other small expenses, I had already spent over $8,000, money I had been saving for a down payment on a house. "I can't," I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry, but I just can't afford any more." The line went silent for a moment before my sister's voice came back, cold and hard. "Wow, I never thought my own sister would ruin my wedding over a few dollars. Real nice." She hung up before I could respond. 10 minutes later, my phone exploded with messages from my mother, my sister's fiancé, and even my grandmother, all expressing disappointment in my selfishness. Apparently, my sister had wasted no time in spreading the news that I was threatening to destroy her special day. I spent that night crying, then woke up the next morning with a strange sense of clarity. I paid for the dresses, putting them on a credit card I had been keeping for emergencies, but I also made a decision about the wedding gift. The wedding day arrived picture-perfect as expected. I performed all my maid of honor duties with a smile plastered on my face. I helped my sister into her gown, fixed her veil, held her bouquet during the ceremony, and gave a heartfelt toast that revealed none of what had transpired between us. When it came time for gifts, I waited until my sister and her new husband were seated at the head table, surrounded by friends and family. I approached with a small, elegantly wrapped box and a card. "I wanted to give you something meaningful," I said, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "Something that represents what this wedding has meant to me." My sister smiled triumphantly as she opened the card first, as I knew she would. Her expression froze as she read the contents. A detailed accounting of every penny I had spent on her wedding, totaling $9,378.42. Attached was a note that read, "My gift to you is not holding you accountable for any of this. Consider us even. Congratulations." The box contained a framed photo of us as children, arms around each other, grinning without a care in the world. Before money, weddings, and adult complications had come between us. A collective gasp went around the table as the card slipped from my sister's fingers. Her husband picked it up, his eyes widening as he scanned the numbers. "Is this true?" he asked her, his voice low. My sister's face flushed crimson as she looked from her new husband to our parents, who were now reading over his shoulder with expressions of growing horror. I hadn't planned to cause a scene. Honestly, I'd expected her to open the gift in private later. But in that moment, watching understanding dawn on the faces of our family, I felt no satisfaction, only a profound sadness. "I hope you have a wonderful life together," I said quietly before walking away. The aftermath was predictably chaotic. My sister didn't speak to me for the remainder of the reception. My parents were divided. My father took me aside to ask if I was trying to humiliate the family, while my mother, after initial shock, pulled me into a crushing hug and whispered, "Why didn't you tell me?" The next day, as the family gathered for a post-wedding brunch, which I had not been asked to organize or fund, thankfully, my sister approached me. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her new wedding band glinting as she twisted it nervously. "My husband and I talked last night," she said, her voice small. "He had no idea about any of this. He thought his parents were covering most expenses, and that the bridesmaids were sharing costs." I said nothing, waiting. He's insisting that we pay you back," she continued. "All of it." I studied my sister's face, trying to determine if there was genuine remorse there or just embarrassment at being caught. "I don't want your money," I finally replied. "I just wanted you to see what you were doing." She nodded slowly. "I get it now. I took advantage. I'm sorry." Those two words, more precious than any repayment could be, hung between us. They weren't enough to instantly heal the breach, but they were a start. 3 months later, an envelope arrived in my mail. Inside was a check for exactly $9,378.42 and a note in my sister's handwriting. "Whether you cash this or not is your choice. But the debt needed to be acknowledged. I'm working on being better." I put the check in my desk drawer, still undecided. The money would certainly help with my depleted savings, but part of me wondered if accepting it would just enable the pattern to continue. What I did know was that something fundamental had shifted between us. For perhaps the first time, my sister was seeing me, really seeing me, not just as a convenient resource, but as a person with limits and feelings of my own. Last week, she called and suggested meeting for coffee. Her treat, she emphasized. We sat across from each other, awkward at first, then gradually finding our way back to conversation. There were apologies, tears, and eventually careful laughter. "I've been thinking a lot about that photo you gave me," she said as we were preparing to leave. "Us as kids. I miss those girls sometimes." "They're still here," I replied. "Just with better boundaries now." She nodded, understanding in her eyes. "I still don't know if our relationship will ever fully recover. Trust, once broken, is painstaking to rebuild." But as I drove home from our coffee date, I felt something I hadn't experienced in relation to my sister for a long time. Hope. Sometimes the most valuable wedding gifts aren't the ones on the registry. Sometimes they're the hard truths that force us to see ourselves clearly, and the courage to believe that even after such clarity, love can still find a way forward. As for the check, it's still in my drawer. Some decisions don't need to be rushed.